Welcome to Mulready Minutes with Oklahoma Insurance Commissioner Glenn Mulready. This is a podcast about insurance for insurance folks, risk managers, and business leaders. We'll dive deep and look at what is and isn't working, talk to leaders in the industry, and keep you informed on what's happening in Oklahoma and around the country.
Welcome back to another episode of Mulready Minutes. I'm Insurance Commissioner Glenn Mulready. We are thrilled today to kind of launch the legislative session that's coming up in just about 30 days. And so in light of that, we thought it'd be great to have on some of the legislative leadership within the insurance space. And unfortunately, Representative Sneed, who chairs the House Insurance Committee, had a last-minute illness with the family, so he had to bow out. But we are thrilled to have Senator John Michael Montgomery here, who chairs the Senate Insurance Committee. And we have Ashley Scott, who is on our team at the Oklahoma Insurance Department. She heads up our government affairs and our community affairs. And Ashley has had lots of experience basically across the street at the Capitol, walking those halls. And I first met Ashley and when she was on staff with multiple speakers of the House. And so we were able to steal her away at the insurance department. And she's a rock star for us and very well known, very, very well respected at the Capitol. So with that, let me give a quick bio here on Senator John Michael Montgomery. He was born and raised in Lawton, graduated from the University of Oklahoma. I'll refrain from making comments. My boys were all at OSU.
Boomer.
With a BA in International Studies and has an MA in Global Affairs. He's worked in the financial services industry, is the founder of his own investment advisory firm, Invictus Investment Advisors. Senator Montgomery served 4 years in the House. I served with him when I was in the House, and he currently serves in the Senate as the chair for the Retirement Insurance Committee and vice chair for the Appropriations Subcommittee on Health and Human Services. He lives in Lawton with his wife, Kylie, and their daughter and 2 dogs, a 4-year-old daughter now. Yep. I remember when she was born.
Yep.
Very, very cool. And so given, Senator, your role with the Retirement Insurance Committee and Appropriation on Health and Human Services, you're in a lot of our space, and it's things that we are dealing with. So tell me a little bit about the Senate Insurance Committee, and you've served on that for a number of years now, and the makeup of that. Anything just sort of within the Senate? We're coming off an election. Any changes happening there, and leadership, that sort of thing?
Yeah, we just yesterday or a couple of days ago we had Organization Day, so all the membership of the different various committees were announced, as well as the majority party as well as the minority party, and so they've put out there who's going to be on there. The Retirement Insurance Committee in the Senate is changing a little bit. We have a couple of members that are carrying over from the previous year, a couple of years, but we do have some new members. I believe Senator Coleman's going to be on. One of the new senators, Tom Woods from Eastern Oklahoma, he'll be joining us, and so I'm super excited, honestly, about having some of these new guys on there. Of course, it's good to have that institutional knowledge as well. So I've got some returners like Senator Hamilton and Senator Matthews and Senator Brooks, I believe, are staying on. So there's a good mix of new guys and some of the old guys that have already been doing it. So. The Senate Retirement and Insurance Committee, we meet pretty much every week. We've got bills. We're unique from the House. We have retirement, which is the state pension systems generally, and kind of financial services, as well as the insurance component. So the House has 2 different committees for that component. So I have to work with both of those guys on those separate issues. But speaking specifically to insurance, we certainly see a lot. Quite frankly, the body of work is. There's quite a few bills that we'll see in the insurance space, particularly healthcare. We see a lot on those issues. PBMs are really popular right now. It's a really popular conversation right now, as you probably know. So
actually not very popular.
It's we see quite a bit on that, and of course, sometimes you get like maybe a health insurance mandate or something like that may come up. Of some variety, and so you see different. There's a lot, particularly in the health insurance side. We don't see a whole lot, and every now and then, P&C, property and casualty, is usually kind of an update type thing. We're just making sure we're conforming with, kind of international standards or national standards or whatever the case may be. So we don't see, there's some work in P&C, but it's a little bit not as heavy as the health insurance side of things usually. So. Yeah. We was talking before, we are planning to get pretty heavy into it even the first week of session, as far as getting our bills done. A lot of times that first week is kind of a lull But we do want to try to get some things moving off to the floor and get these things, into the legislative process. And so, it's
interesting you comment about the what you're seeing in the insurance committee. Just last night, I was working on some. The NEIC is our National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and this past year, I've served as the national chair of that organization. So, anyways, last night working on some different things and thoughts on that, and I started this past year with our zone. So we have a Midwest zone, and I've been the chair of that this past year. So when we have our big meetings, I've done these sort of breakouts of just sort of a roundtable discussion. We have 13 states, and it allows us to kind of talk about what we're seeing and hearing. And as I was going through that last night, it struck me that, and usually before those meetings, I put out to everyone, what do we want to discuss? What's happening that you want to hear from the other states in our zone on? And more than 9 times out of 10 suggestions are health insurance related.
Right.
And as I just thought about that last night, I think what it is, with health insurance, everyone is dealing with that constantly.
Yep.
You're having a physician's visit, you're filling a prescription, not daily, but multiple times a month.
Right.
Whereas on the P&C side, you're not having a car accident a month or that sort of thing. So it really is front and center for a lot of folks, and so it does catch a lot of attention. So.
Yeah, and I want to give some love to our P&C guys too. I actually had kind of a personal issue here recently, houses, my house ended up in a bit of a situation, if you will, and so thank God for good P&C insurance, homeowners insurance. Make sure you check your coverage. Get with your agent. You never know when these things are going to happen. Insurance is there for a reason. People, sometimes kind of take that for granted. It's kind of frustrating. Hey, I got to pay a premium and all this stuff, but that coverage is important, and it should not be taken for granted. In a lot of ways.
Yeah,
so
good point.
I want to put that pitch in there.
Yeah,
so.
and this has come up recently with. I did a couple different TV interviews over the last 60 days probably on rising homeowners insurance costs and as well as auto costs. And review with your agent.
Yep.
And at the very end of one of those interviews, they asked what my advice was. And I said, shop around. And when you're driving your car, put your phone down.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Yeah.
But doing some checking for those, we easily have over 100 companies doing homeowners insurance in Oklahoma, as well as auto insurance. So it's a competitive marketplace. And the best thing folks can do is review that coverage with an agent and shop around.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
Good point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Ashley, we have quite a legislative
we do.
agenda.
You have a few
Senator
bills.
Montgomery has been amazing about it. So we're going to try to get most of those started in the Senate, just for my own sanity so that I can keep track with everything that we're doing this year. We've got quite a few things that we're trying to touch on. A lot of our program areas have some really great ideas on how we can be better customer service friendly to the consumers as well as to industry. And so we're making some changes there. Some of the high key points are like our service warranties, and we had a new bill passed last year on vehicle financial protection products, which was a new product in the line of service warranty arena. And so cleaning up some of our statutes and things like that to make sure that those work fluidly together and that we have clear processes in place for the industry when they're wanting to sell those products, and consumer protections for when someone buys a product. If something goes wrong or something's not covered, they have a means to reach out to the department and get some consumer assistance on that issue. So there's some new things out there there's always something new, it seems like, coming around in the insurance world. Everything's always changing. So we're trying to just keep up the best we can and make those changes each legislative session to keep doing the job we try to do for our consumers.
And Senator, just so you know, and anyone watching this, we don't just sit around dreaming up ideas of, hey, what can we throw at the insurance committee this year? We have a lot of our things come from our consumer assistance area, where we have a full-time staff doing nothing but taking calls all day, every day, about 15,000 calls a year average on basically consumer complaints, issues with a claim, and that could be health insurance or it could be a homeowner's insurance policy.
Right.
And a lot of these are birthed out of that, where we start to see a pattern or concerns or how we could help protect consumers better. And so we have, and especially under Ashley's leadership, have put out a very structured process for them to feed ideas to us and then to flush that out from our legal team. I think we've got a great process in place now. Unfortunately, that does load you down a bit with
Hey, it works for me. So,
some of these corrections, but we think will be corrections and improvements. So.
To that point, we also, meet with industry and stakeholders and fill them out on those issues and try to get good feedback from them. And sometimes we get better ideas from them. And so we try to work with our stakeholders in the industry as well and flush those out prior to session. So hopefully it makes your job a little easier.
Yeah. And you guys do, frankly, a good job of working with, industry stakeholders as well as, a key component of this is consumer protection, certainly. It's, these things are, the average person, it's very difficult, maybe possibly sometimes to understand their policy or what all is in there. I see the policy. Even I'm not always aware of what all is in my policy, even, right? I'm the chair, so it's very important to make sure we take care of consumers, like you guys are saying. And so I certainly applaud y'all's work on this. Making sure that we're balancing insurance companies' needs as well as the consumers, of course. So
right,
you guys do a good job of that. So.
Yeah, we see our role as the number one priority is consumer protection.
Right.
But secondly, we also want to be a business-friendly state and in a free market scenario and giving consumers as many choices as possible.
Right.
And so I think we've done a really good job of balancing that. We've worked hard at it. But Ashley, maybe hit on a couple of the priorities of the legislative agenda. What is going to be coming before through the Senate committee and through the House and then on to the governor for signature?
Sure. So,
presumptuous of me.
We talked about one of them just now. We do have some things related to PBM that we want to do internally, just internal processes, things that have changed over the last few years with court rulings and with also some of the legislative changes, just making sure that we have consistency across PBM is in two different titles of law, so consistency across both titles of law. And there's been some new reporting mechanisms added for PBMs and health insurers in those mechanisms. So making sure that is cleaned up as much as possible so that our staff can do their due diligence to ensure that those are being handled appropriately and that our pharmacies and consumers and everyone has access to that service. So that's going to be one of our bigger pieces. Of course, because it's in the limelight, it's going to probably be one of the more contentious ones too. So we're going to have to work diligently on those. But looking ahead at that, we also have some other consumer protection things as simple as, virtual training courses that you can take for your health insurance, for your PNC licensing. Yeah. So allowing that to be done virtually so that they don't have to go to a location. We found out we were one of few states that still had a statute requirement for in-person training. So doing away with some things like that are big key priorities for us, especially coming out of the COVID time and knowing what an important piece being able to do something maybe from home or not having to go and sit in a classroom setting is to a lot of people, making sure that we're still allowing those opportunities. We have some licensing changes that were made last year, so we're doing some cleanup there with some of the other requirements around consumer representatives and insurance consultants and things like that, and combining that into a producer license. So just some major cleanup pieces like that we're trying to work on, and hitting a few of the high areas like our PBM functions and things like that throughout the process. So.
Yeah, speaking of PBMs, we and Senator, I mentioned the role I was able to have this year leading the Health Insurance Committee nationally, and a big part of that too has been the PBM piece. And Oklahoma is, just so you know, and they know, is a real leader in that space. We are literally a few years ahead of most other states, and so we are being called upon often to make presentations or to, and really, if nothing else, for states to learn from our mistakes as we've navigated this, because we clearly here in Oklahoma have the strongest legislation and statutes surrounding the PBM compliance and enforcement area, and we've now got 5 full-time employees doing nothing but that PBM compliance. So it has become a much bigger part of our space than just a few years ago. Yeah. So,
yeah. And I hear that frequently too. Other states ask us like, "How did you guys get this done?" kind of thing. How are we doing in regulating PBMs and that sort of thing? And To your point, yeah, we certainly are a leader in the space, and a lot of people are looking at how we're doing it. So it's also why we have to take our time and make sure we get it right as well. I mean, I think people need to understand, like, you're talking about, frankly, regulating a space that wasn't regulated before in the same way that it is now. And so there's things that take time to catch up. And you talk about the complaints. I've seen the volumes are pretty substantial, quite frankly. How do you, on the regulatory side, even keep up with doing that? I mean, that's certainly a big challenge, I think. And we have to be mindful of that as we go forward there. So
to your space,
y'all's work. I mean,
to your point, it's a space that hasn't been regulated.
Right.
They're not used to being regulated, and it's a space where there are millions of transactions a day.
Right.
That's a complicating.
Yeah. Everybody that goes and gets their prescription filled. Exactly. I mean, it's every day there's something there that could pop up. So
So you were vice chair previously in session. I think Senator Marty Quinn had been in that role for a while. So you now set up. Who will be the vice chair of your committee with you?
Shane Jett.
Shane Jett is. Yes, thank you. Yes, I apologize. Wow. Shane Jett. So he'll be a new addition to the committee actually as well. And so, but Shane Jett, he had a lot of previous legislative experience. I'm not sure if
I never served with him.
Okay.
But certainly knew of him.
Yeah. So he had some time. So I think he's actually on his last term right now, and so he's got probably a couple more years. But he's the vice chair at the moment. So yeah.
Got it. Any concerns with your committee or
I think, and again, this kind of goes to the dual role that I have. I mean, with pensions and things, I'm kind of looking pretty heavy on the pension side.
What's that look like for a percentage split of time and energy?
Honestly, probably about 50-50, quite frankly. I mean, it's you get just enough bills that come over back from the House, and of course I've got a few things that I'd like to try to accomplish. But even on the insurance side, I'm looking at some things, probably one of the products that's, talking about supporting free markets and things. Some insurance companies, with their disability policies, they are looking to basically be able to expand that in a way to have a rider essentially on the disability policy that would cover a spouse. So the idea is that this is kind of a quasi sort of paid family leave type thing. And basically it kind of accomplishes that goal. So my interest is, how do we support that? Getting that policy out there, and maybe getting employers, incentivized to offer that to their employees. Maybe you got two spouses. Maybe not both employers are going to want to offer that kind of thing. So maybe one of them will, so it can cover the spouse. And the idea is, it supports like sort of a paid family leave type aspect. And I've heard kind of some initial reports on it. It's quite frankly pretty affordable from what it could sound like. But
you're just underwriting two people. It really isn't overly complicated.
Yeah. So I certainly want to support that. I think support that innovation as we go forward. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's we're pro-family state as well. We're pro-life and everything. So we want people to have good opportunities to make sure that they have coverage where they need it and when they need it in that realm. And so I'm certainly looking to expand that and support that expansion.
Good. I'm glad to hear you say that. Not about that specifically, but even just supporting innovation and creativity, because we have tried to do that too. Certainly since I've come in office, and in fact, we just recently hired on a new captive director who is one of the top captive folks in the country, and he cited, I happened to read an article, I think, where he was interviewed, where he cited part of his reason to come to Oklahoma was that we, the department, had a reputation of being innovative and entrepreneurial, spirited sort of thing. And so I was proud to hear that. I think that's a great thing. And
it is a great thing. Yeah. It's an important space, and it's like you said, there's a lot of innovation that can take place there to help people out in a very positive way. So.
Yeah, and it brings more choices to Oklahomans. Yeah, as long as we can protect them. Good. Yeah. Ashley, anything else we need to talk about?
Well, talking about captives, we're working with Senator Montgomery on a corporate law bill that will allow us to hopefully have some flexibility with your directors and officers coverage in the captive space. So we're working with him and a few other stakeholders on that piece. So hopefully that will bring some more businesses here as well and give us some more flexibility within those spaces. We're also working with some stakeholders on some mental health parity changes to allow access ensuring that denials are not, being handled any differently. We're having a lot of trainings and things internally with our staff on parity laws and how to read those federal reports and things like that, and trying to shift some of that to mirror their federal government with some statutes that were changed last year. So we're continually evolutionizing that piece there and trying to figure out how to read between the lines and figure out what our insurance companies are doing and how we can make that better for our consumers. So those are two major pieces that I think through this conversation want to mention. But
our captive space is something that we have targeted as a real growth opportunity for us, and so we're investing in that. I mean, that person I just mentioned, Steve Kenyon, who we've hired on to lead that, he was a captive director for 13 years in Delaware, grew that captive business there into one of the largest in the country. Yeah. And so
it's really fun you say Delaware, because when she approached me about the kind of the update on that, it just periodically we update sort of the Oklahoma's general corporation code. Basically, this is how you register to be a company and LLC and everything else. And Delaware is, pretty much the state that we try to model off of. Everybody goes, Delaware updates their thing, and so we try to keep ours updated. We were trying to do this last year. There was kind of some, we weren't 100% sure on the bill, so we kind of paused it for another year. But it actually fits. It's a pretty lengthy bill, but this is something that, kind of what we can hopefully shove right into it, and it mixes out with that. And so it worked out. It worked out perfectly for me. So. Of course, you mentioned mental health parity. That's probably been one of my favorite things to work on in the last couple of years. I think that's super important. I mean, again, consumer not knowing maybe what their policy covers or doesn't cover, making sure they have that information and getting access, because a lot of these policies do cover something to some extent. And we've seen it, mental health and addiction and things like this. We've got to get people the help that they need when they need it, and making sure they have the right policy in place is a good part of that, and making sure they have the information helps better inform their decision in making a policy choice. So.
We've been working very closely with industry, with Healthy Minds.
Healthy Minds.
Others,
It's a complex issue.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, listen, as we kind of wrap up, a practical question, I guess, would be: so we start the legislative session in a month. We're starting to run through things through committee. I'm an insurance agent sitting at home and learn of a bill, or I'm a homeowner who has some concerns. What's the best way to reach out to you or other members of your committee on any insurance issues?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you ever have a question about a bill you hear about or anything like that, I mean, everybody's, their office contact information is pretty much online. The OK Senate website, as well as the Oklahoma House website. Contact your committee member, get involved, ask them what's going on. They may not know immediately the answer, but they're going to go out. If you got a good legislator, they're going to go out and help you find the answers that you need, answers to your questions. And certainly you can voice your concern or non-concern about a bill. That's definitely the right time to do that. Hit it in an email, make a call, maybe reach out for coffee even in the district. Everybody goes home. I live in Lawton. People are shocked to find that out sometimes, that I do live in Lawton.
Find them there on Fridays.
So I mean, certainly reach out, and at any given point, I mean, we're all pretty flexible. We want to accommodate our constituents' concerns and needs at any given point. So it's very important to get involved, and that's a good step. I mean, certainly. We can help out. Sometimes, maybe an agency may get kind of bogged down with something, or it may not always be the best, it may not be the easiest to navigate sometimes. And so that's where we can kind of come in and kind of point you in the right direction if we need to. So
good. We work with your staff and your EA all the time on different issues. So
yes, absolutely.
It's a great working relationship.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Well, Chairman Montgomery, thank you for joining us. You heard it there. Reach out to them. They want to hear from you, Senator Montgomery, as well as the committee and other members of the Senate. It's on. Go to the website. Phone numbers are there. You can speak to their EAs or executive assistants. Voice your opinion. They do want to hear about those, and because having been there, you can't be an expert in everything. And I mean, and you and I are in the world, right? We were in that insurance and investment world, or have been for many, many years. But someone else in your committee maybe isn't, and they need to learn too. So that comes from the folks that are reaching out, and so good. I want to just thank you for coming on and sharing some of your time. I know it's valuable at this point, just before your starting session. So very, very much appreciated. So with that, we'll wrap up this edition, the first one of 2023 of the Mulready Minutes podcast. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.
If you found this episode informative, please subscribe and share with your colleagues. Visit oid.ok.gov/podcast. Let us know what topics you would like to hear about on this podcast. Until next time, take care from the Oklahoma Insurance Department.